Hey there. So, I was chatting with one of our members, Luke, and he told me his biggest struggle with investing is when he research, well, I will quote him, when I research on a stock, I do research using a top-down approach. This means I will first research in different sectors to find out which one grows the most. Then I will narrow down to the companies. I'll understand their business model, growth stories to check if there's any headwinds. And even if Luke did all this research, the stock might not move. And Luke, I'm making this video just for you. And I completely understand your struggle. And, in the past, I always wonder, well, why isn't the stock moving? And so on. So I want to take some time and answer this question in detail. So looking at my notes here. So you're starting with a top-down approach, which requires you to do a lot of research in the beginning. But instead, here's how to approach it. So the solution is first, you pick companies you know. So when I say companies you know, that means you know their strategy, you know they have a good strategy, and you know that they're growing in the market. Maybe it's because you're chatting with a friend and they're growing and you ask them, oh, why do you think they're doing so well? Or you're chatting with your friend, maybe the strategy itself is better than all the competitors. By knowing the strategy is working, this will save you a ton of time because you don't have to go by sector, you don't have to research against different companies. So you start with what you know, and this will save you the most time. Second, before you dive really deep into research, the first thing I would do is to look at the chart. Now, you gave me an example, Ulta Beauty Inc. right here, ULTA, which is a ticker symbol. So just by glancing at this, without doing any research whatsoever, we know there's a good trend. Simple as that. You know there's a good trend. This is the first criteria. If you see a stock that doesn't even have a good trend, I would just skip it. Because the chance of you doing enough research to prove that the stock will break out of, let's say, the stock is ranging and you want to prove that it will break out, it's a lot of effort. Instead, focus on ones that are already trending. Now, notice, this is a weekly chart. This is 100 EMA, 200 EMA. So just by knowing the price is above 100 and 200 EMA demonstrates a good trend. So for those of you who don't know what an EMA is, it's an exponential moving average. Now, some people use it for support, but I wouldn't go into that. So let's go through my stock list. So I'll show you a few more examples. For example, Shake Shack. So Shake Shack is not even on IPO long enough to have the 200 EMA showing here. So there's only 100 EMA, and you'll see that it's below. Do I need to do an analysis on Shake Shack? No, because it's below the 100 EMA, so skip. TD, it's a Canadian bank, Toronto Dominion Bank. Super nice trend, super straightforward. Great. If I see TD doing a dip like this, like this, like this, like this, then you probably want to do more research. So you see, you don't want to invest a lot of time until you see that the stock itself is trending, right? Number one, from the chart, which only takes 2 seconds. And second, it is at a dip. Again, takes 2 seconds. Great example, ExxonMobil, one of the largest oil companies in the world. And you can see that, does it have a good trend? No, because the price fluctuates between 100 and 200 EMA. So I would even go into, doing research whether this is going to grow or not. I'm not interested. Southwest, great trend, very straightforward. And now you see how it's dipping so much, or it's dropping a lot. So there might be an opportunity between 48 to 44. And I would do more research once price is closer to this area. So again, I don't need to do research because, it's not at a dip. Nike. Now this one is a bit tricky because once you do more research, you'll realize their financial performance is not that great. But again, nice trend. You see that it dips into this 100 and 200 EMA zone. And then between 54 and 50 is probably a good chance to buy. But then at this point, I'll do more research. You see what I'm doing? Again, Netflix, great trend. I'll wait for a dip, moving on. Tesla, great trend. I'll wait for a dip, moving on. So you see, I'm not always like doing an in-depth research until an opportunity arises. And an opportunity arises when, well, I see a good trend and it's at a dip. So for example, Facebook. Until I see something like this, like a dip, another dip, I don't need to do research. But I know Facebook has a great strategy. It's trending. Over time, if I hold it, it's going to grow. Again, Amazon, wait for a dip. So this is HSI, which is Hang Seng Index, which is Hong Kong. Again, not really a great trend. So I wouldn't research in it until I see a great trend. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's do a quick recap. First, you focus on companies you know that has a great strategy, or else don't even add it on your list. Second, use the chart as your first filter to find an obvious trend. Because chances are, if you don't even see an obvious trend from the chart, you don't want to waste your time. Third, once you see an obvious trend and a dip, because now you're buying at a price advantage, right? Then you do the research. And that's it. So before you go, I thought it might be fun to give you just a fun fact. So you said you invested in Alta back in 2016. So assuming, let's say you got in here, right at the dip, 150. And if you bought stock options, like a call option, instead of regular stocks, and you put the strike price at around 120, just by reaching 200, you would have tripled your money. And this is why I invest in stock option, because if you buy a regular share, let's say you bought it at an incredible price in 2016, which is 150, and you exited at the highest high, 300, you would only make 100%, which is fantastic. 100% is fantastic, and assuming you can time it that well. But assume I don't time it that well and I invest in stock options, and if I invest same price with a strike of around 120 here, so that means my option is worth around 30 to 40. So if I add around 80 on 150, then that is 230. So if I just exit around here, any time between the later half of 2016 or the early half of 2017, I would have tripled my money. And that's the power of stock option. Have a good night.